When you picture the perfect suburban home, there's a very specific image that comes to mind for most of us.
No, absolutely.
It's like it's quiet, it's peaceful. You've got the manicured lawn, maybe this massive, majestic oak tree casting shade over the driveway,
Mm.
and of course that charming green ivy creeping up the brickwork. It just feels so settled, permanent.
Right. We look at that exact landscape and instinctively we just see safety. We see stability.
But the thing is, if you peel back the layers of that greenery, that whole tranquil image completely shatters because you're actually looking at a covert biological war zone.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is, a war zone.
So today we are taking a deep dive into a fascinating stack of field notes, articles, and insights from John Constantine over at Tree Service Perfection out in West Covina, California. And we're going to completely flip the script on how you look at your yard.
It's a great collection of material.
Our mission today is to look way beyond the aesthetic appeal of a typical residential landscape. We're uncovering the microscopic invaders, the structural hazards, and the climatic time bombs that are happening literally right outside your window.
And what's so compelling about this source material is that it's not just about landscaping. It offers this brilliant masterclass in risk management in urban ecosystems.
Right.
It really forces you to rethink how the mechanical forces of the natural world intersect with our built environments.
I want to start by stripping away that illusion of beauty we talked about, specifically looking at vines and ivy. Because a brick house covered in English ivy is like, well, that's the peak of historic established charm, right? It looks like an old university library.
It does. Homeowners plant them intentionally for that exact natural facade.
But according to the West Covina sources, species like English and Algerian ivy, they actually function as aggressive parasites when introduced to residential architecture.
They do, and the problem lies in the biology of how they actually climb. You see, these plants don't merely lean against a wall or weave through a trellis for support like people think.
Wait, they don't?
No, not at all. As they scale a vertical surface, they develop these tiny aggressive root systems right along their stems. In the arboriculture industry, they're called adventitious roots, or more commonly, holdfasts.
Holdfasts.
Oh.
And the mechanism here is what makes them so destructive, right? Because rather than just like grabbing onto ledges, these holdfasts act like microscopic masonry anchors that cure like epoxy.
That's a great way to put it. They literally secrete a heavy, glue-like biological substance. And this glue binds fiercely into the microscopic pores of bark, brick mortar, and wooden siding.
Wow.
Yeah. And once that chemical bond is formed, the sheer density of the overlapping foliage creates a secondary environmental problem for the structure itself. It traps moisture tightly against the house.
Oh, I see, because of the leaves.
Exactly. Think about the hydrology of a rainstorm, or even just a lawn sprinkler hitting that wall. The water permeates the leaves, but the thick vegetation prevents any airflow, so the water has absolutely nowhere to evaporate.
So you basically have a permanent layer of dampness just sitting against your siding.
Which creates an ideal microclimate for structural wood rot and fungal infections. The actual materials your house is built from begin to break down at a cellular level just to support the plant.
That's wild.
And furthermore, this thick blanket of vegetation alters the pest dynamics of the entire property.
Oh, right. The sources mention this. Rats and mice.
Yes, rats, mice, and insect colonies actively seek out this protective cover because it shields them from predators like hawks or owls.
Right. It's like a camouflage net.
Exactly. By allowing these plants to scale your walls, you are inadvertently engineering a sheltered superhighway for pests. They can bypass your foundation level entirely and just waltz directly into your vulnerable roof vents and attic spaces.
I mean, hearing that, I can completely see the impulse for a homeowner to go out, grab those vines, and just rip them right off the house.
Which is the worst thing you could do.
Right. The source material warns that brute force is a terrible approach. Because if those holdfasts are glued on like epoxy, yanking the live vines will pull down gutters, rip away paint, and even pull chunks of stucco right off the lath. So how do you actually mitigate something that is chemically bonded to your home?
Well, proper removal requires an understanding of plant biology rather than physical strength. If you just yank the foliage, the plant's structural integrity is actually stronger than the paint or mortar it's attached to.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So you have to sever the life source first. This means cutting the vines at the base, completely disconnecting them from the root system in the ground, and then you have to wait.
Let the biological anchors degrade.
Precisely. As the severed vines die, they desiccate. The moisture leaves the plant, and that biological glue dries out and becomes brittle over several weeks or sometimes months.
So you just leave the dead vines on the house for a while.
You have to. Only after the holdfasts have completely died and lost their elasticity can you begin the meticulous process of detaching them with the proper hand tools.
That makes sense.
Working with nature's mechanics, even when you're eradicating an invasive species, is vastly safer for the property than fighting those mechanics.
That's a really good point.
Yeah.
And speaking of things that seem harmless but are actively working against your property, let's move from the ivy on the walls to what's left in the ground. Leftover tree stumps.
Ah, yes.
Because you cut down a tree and you've got this flat wooden table in your yard. It seems completely inert.
Right. A leftover stump is anything but inert. Especially in warm climates like Southern California, a stump is essentially a massive deposit of decaying organic matter.
Because it's just dead wood sitting in the soil.
Right. And the ambient heat drastically accelerates the microbial breakdown of the wood. So as the cellulose and lignin decay, the stump becomes a centralized food source for subterranean termites, carpenter ants, and wood-boring beetles.
So you're basically engineering a concentrated pest colony just a few yards from your living room.
And those colonies expand exponentially. Once they exhaust the stump or simply overpopulate it, they actively forage for new cellulose sources.
Which means your house.
Exactly. That foraging frequently leads them directly along root paths or soil gradients right into the structural framing of the nearby house.
Okay, so I understand how a dead stump rots and attracts bugs. But the source material highlights this phenomenon called zombie roots.
Yes, the zombie roots.
Which sounds terrifying. How does a stump that has been completely severed from its leaves and branches continue to grow underground? I mean, where is it getting the energy to buckle a concrete driveway if it can't photosynthesize anymore?
Well, it comes down to how mature trees store energy. Even without the canopy to convert sunlight into sugars, a massive root system has immense reserves of carbohydrates stored deep within its cellular structure.
So it has backup batteries, basically.
That's a great analogy. After the trunk is removed, those roots continue their autonomic functions. They just keep pulling in water from the surrounding soil through osmosis.
Which creates pressure.
Immense hydrostatic pressure. The water flows into the root cells, expanding them, but because there is no longer a canopy of leaves to transpire that moisture back into the air, the pressure builds up entirely within the subterranean network.
Wow. So it has nowhere to go.
Nowhere. The roots literally swell and push outward with enough hydraulic force to lift heavy concrete walkways, crack patios, and buckle driveways from below.
That's unbelievable.
This is why professional stump grinding isn't just an aesthetic upsell. It physically destroys the central hub of that stored energy and severs the pathways. That prevents both the pest invasions and the hydraulic damage.
Okay, so the subterranean pressure of a dead stump can destroy your concrete. Let's look at the live trees now. The silent giants on the property. We are talking about mature oaks and towering eucalyptus that can weigh tens of thousands of pounds.
Right, massive structures.
When we look at these articles from the West Covina sources, the focus shifts to massive structural failures hiding in plain sight.
The stakes with mature timber are incredibly high due to the sheer mass involved. But trees are highly communicative organisms. They manifest their internal structural integrity, or the lack thereof, visually.
Homeowners just need to understand the language.
Exactly, the biomechanical language. Deep vertical cracks running down the main trunk indicate that the wood fibers are splitting under tension. Missing, sloughing chunks of bark mean the cambium layer beneath is dead and no longer transporting nutrients.
And what about the canopy?
Well, large, dead branches lingering high up in the canopy suggest the tree's vascular system is failing to pump water against gravity.
But the sources emphasize that the most insidious threat isn't visible in the canopy at all. It's root rot. And there is a really deep irony here regarding Southern California.
There really is.
Because it's a notoriously dry, arid climate. Yet these massive trees are failing because their roots are rotting from overwatering. How does that happen?
The hydrology of the local soil plays a massive role here. Many areas in the San Gabriel Valley have these dense clay soils that just do not drain quickly.
Right, clay just holds the water.
Yes. So when homeowners apply a generic, heavy watering schedule, usually assuming the tree needs constant hydration because the air is hot, the water simply pools underground.
So it's just sitting there.
Sitting in a saturated, oxygen-deprived environment. Roots need to perform cellular respiration, which requires oxygen. When they're submerged constantly, they effectively suffocate and begin to necrotize.
And because it's happening like 3 feet underground,
Hmm.
the homeowner assumes the tree is perfectly healthy until the mushrooms appear.
Yes, the mushrooms.
The sources make a crucial distinction here, which I loved. Fungi growing around the base of the trunk or on the visible surface, roots aren't just whimsical woodland details. They are the fruiting bodies of a massive internal failure.
That's right. Fungi do not grow on perfectly healthy, living wood tissue. They're decomposers,
Oh, so they're eating the tree.
actively eating it. If you see mushrooms sprouting from the root flare, they are actively digesting the lignin and cellulose that give the tree its structural rigidity. The presence of the mushroom on the outside strongly suggests the internal core of the trunk is already heavily decayed.
The tree is essentially hollowing itself out.
And this changes the physics of the tree entirely. A solid trunk distributes the thousands of pounds of canopy weight evenly down into the root system. But a hollow trunk acts like a fragile straw trying to balance a bowling ball.
That is a terrifying visual.
By the time a homeowner notices the tree visibly leaning or sees the soil around the base starting to heave upwards, the root system has already completely failed structurally. Gravity is literally the only thing keeping it upright.
So does seeing a vertical crack or a fungus mean the tree is an automatic teardown? Like if I have a massive oak, I don't want to lose it just because of one dead branch.
No, of course not. And this is the critical intersection of risk management and professional arboriculture. A certified specialist evaluates the mathematical viability of the tree.
So it can be saved.
Preservation is often possible through targeted structural pruning. By selectively removing dead wood and thinning the canopy, an arborist reduces the aerodynamic drag. It's essentially shrinking the sail of the tree.
Shrinking the sail, I like that.
Yeah, and this reduces the mechanical leverage the wind can apply to the trunk. It also improves internal airflow, which can change the microclimate within the canopy and suppress certain fungal growths.
But preservation isn't a guarantee.
No, it's not. When fungal infection has advanced deeply into the heartwood, or the structural decay poses an imminent physical threat to infrastructure, extraction is the mandatory choice. Allowing a hollow 10,000-pound structure to remain suspended over a house out of sentimentality is a profound liability.
Which brings us to the environmental catalyst.
Yeah.
Because we've mapped out these compromised structures, right? The ivy trapping moisture, the hydrostatic pressure of zombie roots, the hollow trunks held up by suffocating root systems.
All right, all these vulnerabilities.
So what happens when you take all those weakened elements and introduce them to the volatile reality of Southern California's climate?
You get a highly specialized sequence of environmental stressors. The San Gabriel Valley features a Mediterranean ecosystem characterized by extreme behavioral swings.
Extreme swings.
Yeah. You have extended, incredibly arid summers, followed by brief but intense winter rainstorms.
And the sources detail exactly how this weather whiplash physically dismantles weakened trees.
Yeah.
The sequence is just fascinating.
It really is an incredible chain of events.
Because it starts with the dry period. The summer bakes the dense clay soil, causing it to physically shrink and crack. The soil literally pulls away from the tree's microscopic root hairs, drastically weakening the tree's mechanical grip in the earth.
Exactly. The root ball loses its tight compression within the ground, and then the winter storms arrive.
Right.
Because the soil is so severely baked and cracked, it has lost its capillary action. Its ability to absorb water gradually.
So it flash saturates.
Yes. The water pools instantly, turning the dirt surrounding the roots into thick, frictionless mud.
Frictionless mud.
Right. So those roots, which were already shrunk and stressed by the drought, suddenly find themselves sitting in a liquid suspension. They have absolutely zero mechanical friction holding them down.
And then the Santa Ana winds arrive.
The Santa Ana winds. These are high-velocity, seasonal wind events pushing down through the mountain passes. Picture the physics of this moment.
Okay.
You have a mature tree with a massive, dense canopy full of leaves. That canopy acts as a giant aerodynamic sail, and the wind hits that sail with incredible kinetic energy.
But down below, the roots are sitting in saturated, frictionless mud.
Right. So the tree becomes a massive lever. The wind applies force to the top of the lever, and because there is no structural anchor in the liquid mud at the base, the tree has no defense to resist the torque.
Wow.
The canopy catches the wind, and the entire massive structure leverages its own root ball right out of the ground.
So the soil turns to soup, the wind hits the canopy, and a 10,000-pound oak leverages itself right out of the mud. That's just wild to picture.
It's devastating when it happens.
But gravity is really just the start of the problem, isn't it? Because when a tree like that falls, it rarely lands neatly on an open patch of grass. What happens when that immense weight comes to rest on a roof or a driveway or a power line?
The property transitions instantly from a residential landscape into an active, highly dangerous hazard zone. The forces trapped inside a fallen tree are immense and entirely unpredictable to an untrained eye.
The sources outline the emergency protocols here, and it makes it very clear why DIY chainsaw work is so often fatal in these scenarios.
Oh, without a doubt. When a tree falls and comes to rest on uneven terrain, like leaning against a house or draped over another tree, the wood is under extreme physical stress.
Because it's not resting flat?
Exactly. Some branches are under severe tension, bent like a loaded spring. Other sections of the trunk are under massive compression.
So if a homeowner just takes a chainsaw and cuts into a branch under tension,
The release of that stored kinetic energy is violent. The branch can snap back with enough force to cause fatal blunt force trauma. Or it can pinch the chainsaw blade so tightly it violently kicks the saw back at the operator.
that is terrifying. And the sources also highlight something called widowmakers,
Oh, yes, widowmakers.
which are the broken branches suspended high in the canopy. A branch weighing hundreds of pounds snaps during the windstorm, but gets tangled in the branches below it.
Right, it doesn't fall all the way.
It's just suspended there, waiting for a slight breeze or a shift in weight to dislodge it and send it crashing down onto whoever's walking underneath.
It's incredibly dangerous. And due to the complexity of these hazards, the clientele calling for emergency tree extraction spans far beyond panicked homeowners.
Like who else?
While homeowner associations require immediate clearance of private roads so emergency vehicles can pass, commercial property owners must secure parking lots to prevent liability. Even municipal landscape contractors call in specialized crews when the physical realities of the extraction exceed their equipment capabilities.
Because the gear required isn't just, a pickup truck and a handsaw. The response protocols read like a highly coordinated tactical military operation.
They absolutely do.
Professional crews operate 24/7, deploying heavy cranes, specialized bucket trucks, and complex safety rigging systems.
Because the physics of the rigging is an exact science. Consider a massive tree leaning precariously against the roof of a house. You cannot simply cut the trunk at the base.
Because it would just crash through.
Right, the sudden shift in the center of gravity would cause the tree to crush the structure completely.
So how do they safely dismantle it?
They utilize cranes to take the dynamic load of the tree. A climber actually ascends the structure, securing high tensile rigging lines to specific sections of the canopy.
Okay, so they tie it off to the crane first.
Exactly. The crane operator pulls tension on the line, holding the exact weight of that specific section in the air. Only then does the climber make the surgical cut. The crane lifts the severed piece up and away from the house, lowering it safely to the ground crew.
That's incredibly precise.
And furthermore, when these trees compromise high-voltage power lines, these crews must coordinate directly with local utility companies to de-energize the grid before a single piece of equipment is deployed. It requires an intense mathematical understanding of weight distribution, dynamic loads, and electrical safety.
Wow. We have journeyed through an incredible progression of natural mechanics today.
We really have.
We started at the microscopic level, looking at the biological masonry anchors of decorative ivy slowly trapping moisture against a foundation. We dug underground to understand the immense hydrostatic pressure of zombie roots and the microbial decay turning stumps into pest colonies.
Don't forget the fungi.
Right. We explored the irony of root rot suffocating giants in a dry climate. And finally, we tracked the physics of how baked clay, flash flooding, and high-velocity winds turn a 10,000-pound oak into a massive lever, requiring a tactical, crane-assisted extraction.
It really forces a profound realization about how dynamic our seemingly quiet residential landscapes truly are.
It really does.
Every single element is connected by cause and effect. From the microscopic moisture trapped by a single leaf to the grip of a root hair in the mud during a 60-mile-per-hour windstorm.
So here's what I want you to do. Later today, maybe when you pull into your driveway, just take a minute and look at your yard. Analyze it.
Look closely.
What are the mechanical forces at play on your property right now? Are there deep vertical cracks forming tension points in that trunk? Is that ivy chemically bonding its way up toward your roofline vents? Are you actively practicing preventative maintenance with a certified arborist? Or are you just waiting for the next flash saturation and windstorm to find out which tree is hollow?
And this analysis leads us to a final pivotal question to consider. If mature trees are essentially massive pieces of living, breathing infrastructure weighing tons, actively interacting with the soil hydrology, the structural framing of our homes, and the extreme kinetic forces of the wind, how does the increasing volatility of our seasonal weather patterns force us to rethink the very concept of the American yard?
Oh, that's a great point.
Should we be fundamentally redesigning the mechanical footprint of the flora we permit to live so close to where we sleep?
That is a phenomenal mechanical puzzle to leave on. Because the next time you look at that perfect, quiet, manicured lawn with the charming ivy and the majestic oak well,
Yeah.
you'll understand exactly the physics and biology operating just beneath the surface. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll catch you on the next one.